Hello and welcome to the Something New Show. I'm your host, Jordan Linscombe, along with
Mindi.
Hey, and we're all about creating a life worth celebrating at the Something New Show. And today we're going to dive into the topic of secrets to a long-lasting marriage. We're really excited. We're almost at the 20-year mark for our marriage, but we're going to dive into some tips from a couple that's been married over 84 years. We're going to dive into that story in a moment, plus some tips from others that we know that have been married over 50 years. So you ready, Mindi? We're going to jump into this today.
I'm ready.
Okay.
50 years, that's quite an accomplishment.
So,
or 84 is even more of an accomplishment.
This is wild. So check this out. People magazine recently reported this, that a couple in Brazil has reached an incredible milestone, 84 years of wedded bliss, breaking the Guinness World Record of the longest marriage of a living couple. This has been confirmed by LongeviQuest, a global database that tracks the life and times of the world's oldest people. And according to them, as of February 5 of this year, 2025, Manuel and Dino, 105 years old, and his wife, Maria de Sousa Dino, 101, were verified as truly being married for 84 years. The couple's from the rural municipality of Boa Viagem and the northeastern state of Ceará, which is in Brazil. And they first met around 1936. Again, they met in 1936 while working in agriculture alongside their families. Long story short, they got married. They were married in November of 1940 when he was 21 and she was 17. And according to the story, it was love at first sight for Manuel, but Maria's mother was opposed to the relationship at the start. Undeterred, a smitten Manuel patiently worked to win over his future in-laws, even beginning to build a home for the family he hoped to start with Maria. Following their marriage, Manuel and Maria both worked in agriculture, cultivating rolled tobacco. And then they went on to welcome 13 children, 9 of whom are still living, and later 55 grandchildren, and 60 great-grandchildren, and 14 great-great-grandchildren. That's a big...
And they've outlived 3 of their children.
Yes, or more. 4 of them. That's quite a family reunion just for their clan.
Yeah.
And these days, the couple enjoys a quiet life at home together. Due to his age, Manuel spends most of his time resting, but he gets up every evening to join his wife for a special nightly tradition. They sit beside each other and listen to the rosary prayer on the radio and then watch Mass on TV. And then when they asked, what's the secret to their long and happy marriage? Maria, who celebrated her latest birthday with a butterfly-adorned cake, had a simple answer: love. Which is great, that's cute, but we're going to dive into a little bit more pragmatics of like, what does that mean? And what are some other tips we've heard? But incredible story, over 84 years of marriage. That's longer than most people's average lifespan. So truly remarkable. That just came out last month. So amazing to see that. Just think about that. 8+ decades of being together. So love the story. Love Brazil. I want to take our family there sometime in the future. I've gone in the past with work to Ceará, to that exact region. And the kids are also kind of giving me a hard time lately because I keep listening to Brazilian jazz in the house all the time. And they're like, Dad, what is this? I was like, it just makes me happy. So fun story there. But we're going to dive into some other tips, Mindi, that we've heard, because we know a couple of different folks that have been married over 50 years or just hit that mark recently. And they've shared a couple of tips with us that really helped with long-lasting marriages for them. Again, like over 5 decades for some of these folks that we know and respect. And the first one is friendship. Really just having the importance of maintaining friendship with your spouse, even when schedules feel overwhelming. And if we look at each other right now, we have had quite a month. I mean, I would
say first quarter.
Yeah. So here we are, nearly 90 days into the calendar year. The last 30 in particular have been some of our biggest of the year work-wise. But also some big family moments, like our oldest got his permit, new chapters of life opening up. So the importance of maintaining friendship, even when things are really busy. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's got to look untraditional. I don't think maintaining a friendship looks like date nights, honestly. It looks like, hey, I made you coffee. I know you're headed to work, but here, I put it in your cup holder in the car. Or, a little text message right after, your spouse is about to have a tough meeting and saying, hey, hope the meeting went well. I was thinking about you. I know that wasn't fun. And for us, we found that our best time to connect is in the morning. So we often go to breakfast after dropping the kids off at school. And it's not every week that we get to do that, but once in a while, every couple of weeks, we try to go out to breakfast and just have a really good time to check in while we're fresh and not tired. And, nighttime is always so exhausting for us and not our best time to connect. And usually our filters are gone at that time. So it's much sweeter to be talking to each other like a real friend. And that usually for us happens in the morning.
For
sure. I would just say it's the everyday living and noticing of, hey, how can I show up for this person in a way that would make them feel thought of?
Yeah, for sure. We've talked a lot about in business or the things, that idea of consistency compounds, which we heard from John Maxwell. But I think it matters in relationships too. Like water by the bedside, coffee in the morning, all these other things. I think it really adds up to each other, right?
Or like sometimes people, they'll have like a show that they watch. We listen to audiobooks together. We'll hit the pillow and maybe be too tired to read. And I don't know why, but lately my eyes have been not the best, meaning like they're just kind of getting blurrier and blurrier. So I'm like, in the evening, I just would rather listen to a book. And we've been listening to a book with the laptop in between us, just kind of reading that book. But I think it's just like doing companion-like things together that makes the time just go by, and is somebody to talk to about the way you're experiencing life. And we're experiencing life in a way that, not everybody can understand. And so a true friendship with your companion looks like, hey, I see those little moments. I see you working hard towards those things. And I just want to acknowledge that. And sometimes it's just staying curious about, hey, how did you feel when you went through that thing at work? Or how did you feel when the kids talked to you like that? Because I didn't like it. And I'm like, I didn't like it either. And so just like I said, it's the everyday moments and maybe referencing back to them. And as boring as sometimes it might feel in the day to day, it is the companionship that I feel like keeps things going, because it's not always romantic and it's not always, super engaging. But if you can say, hey, this is where I would say that I would struggle probably more in a marriage, is if I'm a growth mindset person and the other person isn't. That would be really hard for me, because I am definitely a different person than I was 10 years ago or even, yesterday. And so it's like, I want to be with somebody that's also growing and learning and trying to become their best self. And so I would just say that's been something as a companion that I've really appreciated, that you have also desired to just become even stronger, healthier, better as a person in both emotions and physical and intellectual, because, we're always trying to learn. You and I are people that are like growth mindset people. So, even if we're interested in different things, I just appreciate that you're still learning, because I might be interested in learning about something that you're totally not interested in. But the idea that we're still kind of strengthening our brains and learning about new ideas and challenging old ways of thinking, that's just really fun to talk about. And to say, okay, what are you learning about? What's the latest habit that you've adapted to? And it's just challenging me as a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's those small daily rituals or things or checking in with each other along the way that add up to the whole big chapters and memories of life, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just it's those little tiny boring things that that we'll connect with as we go to bed at night and be like, oh, yeah, I read this quote and it really stuck out to me. And like I said, sometimes we're too tired to talk, so we'll just listen to a book. But it's just kind of staying consistently checked in. And sometimes it's a longer, in-depth conversation over breakfast, and other moments it's just a 5-minute moment.
Yep. So 2 things. One, do we go to super fancy places for breakfast?
No, actually, we love like little hole-in-the-wall diners.
And they've just put a new one between here and our house, which is nice.
Yeah, it's great.
And then second is this, there's this idea, like you and I have been married, we've had like 3 or 4 different marriages in 20 years, meaning we have grown as people. And the Mindi
versions.
I married,
we've had different versions of our marriage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Meaning the Mindi I married nearly 20 years ago has grown and matured into such an even better and better person. And I'm doing my best on this side. I'll let you speak to that. But,
yeah,
it's the whole idea of like, be prepared and be okay with the fact that the person you married, again, if they have that growth mindset, is going to continue to go into different chapters and phases of hopefully a better person. And I feel like we've done that and pushed each other to become better. You know, you definitely still push me to get better and better as a.
Yeah. Being married is like the ultimate step on a scale moment, or the ultimate look in the mirror, because there's no holding back. Like you, at least in our marriage, we don't hold back. We tell each other exactly the good, bad, and the ugly. And sometimes we're not kind about it. Sometimes we are, but I'm just saying it's the ultimate, check-in on how are we doing with when it comes to self-improvement. Like, what do we have blind spots about ourselves, but then also of service. Like, you can't be a selfish person and be married. That's just, it doesn't exist. Like, you have to be a very unselfish person, because you have to start to look at the way you spend your time and your money as not just your own will anymore. It's a joint collaboration. It's like, hey, how do we want to spend our time, and how do we want to spend our money? And those are very big decisions that used to be solo decisions. But when you have a good marriage, you do those things as a like, we pray about it and we talk about it, and we don't proceed unless we both have a green light about something. So it is the ultimate kind of take a back seat, be not selfish anymore, service mentality. And then you want to add to that, you have kids. Mm-hmm. You really want to humble yourself and realize you don't have it all together, and realize, like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn and it's not about me. Then you add to that relationship and you say, okay, then I'll have children.
Yeah, for sure. Which is a whole other thing, but we're so grateful for it. All right. So the main idea, principle number one is friendship as a foundational thing in your marriage. The second we're talking about is faith in God.
Can I also, wait, before you go to the second, sorry, but I also think the best marriages started as friends.
Yeah.
I just want to say that, because if somebody is listening that's not married yet, I would say that is really a secret to our success, is that we started as really good friends.
Mm-hmm. You know, and we've heard stories of how different marriages started and have lasted. In our case, we were friends for over 3 years. Our parents all knew each other. Everybody knew each other. They're all waiting on me to, like, step up and, you know, take the next step. Okay. You've given me a hard time about that plenty of times in life. However, like, we knew each other really well. Mm-hmm. And we had been in a whole variety of scenarios in life. I'm not saying that you have to be friends that long. Yeah.
That just happened to be our story. But I'm just saying, to jump straight into romantic expectations without a foundation of friendship is tricky.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So the second concept that we could tie this in is faith in God, because we've seen that our faith has provided stability for us. We've had crazy scenarios in life of, you know, getting married, early careers, building a company together, having children, second-born child has a cancer battle, all these ups and downs of life. And so when we were looking at each other...
And tough business days and years. Really tough years. You know, like we've had our share of different obstacles to overcome. Can I just say, like, the faith in God, what it did for me?
Yeah.
When I felt like quitting, not necessarily in our marriage, but just on everything, it's like sometimes it feels like the easier route to take would just to be like, you know what? This is hard. I think I'm done. And I would say what has kept me there has been my faith in God, because ultimately I made a covenant promise to people to say, hey, I'm going to be there no matter what, even if I have a hard day. And so I would just say faith in God really does sustain you, because you do have hope that there could be a brighter future. There could be, even if today and this year is terrible. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I don't know how people do stay married for 84 years, for example, if they don't have some sort of faith in God. It sounds like these people do, actually. And that's really amazing. But I'm just saying, humans are so imperfect, and there's no element of forgiveness if you don't really have the Judeo faith of realizing, like, hey, we're all sinners saved by grace. And so I have to forgive. Like, it's part of my belief that I will make mistakes. I hope other people forgive me, but by the grace of God, he's forgiven me. And so I must forgive too. And so it's like, I have the capacity to keep going because I have chosen to forgive and also be forgiven, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a give and take. And so I think that's what has brought us back every time through hard times, is like, hey, we made a covenant, we made a promise to each other, and also we have hope that there could be a brighter future. I'm going to stick this thing out. And sticking things out, honestly, every person that you might respect in this world, like any person, they've been through something hard and they stuck it out.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality. Is like every person we respect. Look, think of any famous person or any author, any speaker, or maybe it's your own parents, and you're like, I respect them so much. And I'm like, it's because they went through something hard and they didn't walk away. They stuck it out. And so that's hopefully what we will do. Yeah.
You're reminding me of a conversation we got to listen into with Malcolm Gladwell a couple of years ago. And he was asked about cancel culture and saying like, what's at the root of this and what's it about or what's wrong with this that was going on? Because it was really flaring up, around 22, 23. And he said, you know what? And this was interesting to hear from his perspective, but he's like, the thing that he noticed about the Jesus way is that it included forgiveness for other people and allowed them to grow and become better than what they used to be. And then that core aspect of forgiveness was like an anchor or like a benchmark of what it means to follow the way of Jesus. So that's just coming back to me as you talk about our faith, the example of forgiveness and what that also means and how it needs to spill over into a marriage. To have grace for each other and forgiveness for other people. So that was just a fascinating conversation to hear him reflect on that from his perspective.
This episode is sponsored by Something Blue 30A. Looking for the perfect vacation spot to disconnect from everything, put your feet in the softest sand, and enjoy a fresh, renovated 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhouse right on the beach in my favorite place in the world? Well, 30A is situated in the panhandle of Florida, and I'd love for you to check out Something Blue 30A on Instagram and make it the perfect place for your next vacation.
Because cancel culture basically denies forgiveness. You hold the person to the mistake that they made, even if it was when they were 18 years old. You hold
And
the
he shared
person
examples of that, like
Yeah.
publishers and editors and others who
that got canceled
wrongfully,
because of, but they've become such a stronger, better person over the years that that's not them anymore, but they were still canceled because no element of forgiveness was applied to who they were when they were 18. And so it is kind of an interesting topic, but
Yeah. Well, so again, principle number 2, we're talking about faith. That's been an anchor for us. And then also like a faith community. A hard part in our marriage, but one where we came, in retrospect, we came together closer was the cancer battle for our second-born son. And I just still remember so many people in the hospital being like, you guys have an amazing support system and community. And I just am grateful because by making the faith choices we have, then we've surrounded ourselves with other good people at our local church and other areas of life.
yeah, we wouldn't have made it without our community.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it a lot.
I still think, yes, I don't know how anybody does life without, the old saying is like, it takes a village, but it really does take a village to raise kids, to make it through hard times. I can give story after story after story of people I know that would not be still standing here full of hope about their future if it wasn't for the community that we've surrounded ourselves with. And so we feel super fortunate for that, because you do need to have, like our pastor says, a 3 a.m. phone call person. Like, who's your person you can call at 3 a.m.? And if you don't have that person that's in an emergency able to call, then I think that's a huge priority to start developing some friendships that you could do that with. And you can even have that conversation. Are you at 3 a.m.? Like, are we at that level? My mom used to call them refrigerator friends, and they were people that felt so comfortable coming over. They could just walk up to your refrigerator and go inside your refrigerator. And I'm like, yeah, those are the only kind of people I want. Like, I only want refrigerator friends. In fact, I think we created that so much in our kids that they go to people's refrigerators now and they eat their food. And I'm like, okay, wait, we're not going to quite go there, in other people's homes yet, unless it's like our family. But anyways, I do want that level of friendship. And that's how you get through the hard times.
Yep. Okay, principle number 3 is learning to communicate. And this isn't just a one-time thing. Learning to communicate is a lifelong journey. So our time is limited. We don't get as much like eyeball time, just, hey, sit down and have a perfect cup of coffee as we want. Like we like that. We love that.
There's just always a lot of background noise.
Yeah, very often. So I think importance of really intentional communication, like what is most important to bring to the surface, to bring to our conversations. one, not just about logistics, not just about future planning or achieving and doing, but also checking in with each other. So even, some tips, and we're working on this, like brief and meaningful check-ins, like, hey, how are you feeling today? Can I ask you bluntly, Mindy, is that your default mode of communication? Hey, Jordan, how are you feeling today?
No, I don't ever ask that. I probably should, but I like questions more around, hey, I know, like we have a shared calendar so I can see what you did.
Which has helped us a lot.
That has been.
Thank you for going digital in the last year. I really appreciate that, Mindy.
The shared calendar, though, allows me to see what's on your docket for the day so that when I do want to circle back or send you a thoughtful text message, I can be like, hey, how did that, podcast go? Or how did that meeting, with a team member or whatever go? And so we can really more say, how did you feel during these moments, or identify like a special thing that maybe you want to celebrate. Like I'll tell you is that entrepreneur people have a really small group of people that they feel like they can celebrate with. It's kind of lonely, but hopefully you can celebrate wins with your spouse, because it does feel kind of weird to be like, oh, I just hit this major goal. And it's like, who do you tell that to? But I'm just saying, like, as a spouse, as an entrepreneur spouse too, I hope it's really something you can feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, do you feel excited that this happened? Do you feel excited that you just checked that off, or that project landed well, or that's done? And so it's feelings around certain topics of the day instead of how are you feeling today? I'm like, how are you feeling about such and such? What are you pulling out? You just got your phone out. What are you pulling out?
So with that, we're talking about marriage and communicating together. My friend Josh in Wyoming is an incredible entrepreneur, multiple companies. He sent this to me and a group of guys this morning from Alex Hormozy. But he said, if you want better friends, get used to seeing them less. Better friends are busy friends. Interesting take. But I think what he's saying is, like, really high quality folks are probably doing some pretty good stuff in life where they have their lives scheduled out and a lot's going on. So I'm a quality time person.
Well, like one of our good couple of friends in January, we were like, hey, they're not even in our city, okay? But there were some of our good friends who are like, hey, are we going to be in one of each other's cities in the earlier part of the year? Well, we're going to be in their city in April. So then they were like, hey, let's get a double date on the calendar. But we planned it in January.
Yeah.
So that's kind of to your point, and they're some of our favorite people. So I'm just like, it is kind of funny that you have to like plan way ahead, but it's being intentional or having intentionality around how you want to spend your time. But again, it took communication. We have talked about, hey, those people make us feel great when we leave. When we walk away from any sort of interaction with them, we feel so positive about the future and excited and jazzed about like what's happening at home. Mm-hmm. And so
encourage, stretch, challenge in great ways.
Yeah. And I hope that they feel the same. Mm-hmm. And so, having, again, just open communication about how are we feeling about friendships, how are we feeling about how we spend our time, how we spend our money, because life's short and we want to be jiving, and we got to have those conversations to have that. So that's the communication piece. Okay. Number 4.
Yeah. That's number 4 is having a common mission in life, meaning like you're doing something that is beyond just the two of you. And I feel like for us that we were young, out of college, dating, but we had enough of a commonality where I think we're like, we want to do something that's eternal and lasting, not just like start a business, make money, and have kids. Like we were looking, So this concept is like, how do you look at your purpose as a married couple? Do you have a statement of like what you're about or where you're going in life, right? How many folks have actually just sat down and said like, what's our mission? Like what's success look like for our marriage 4 decades in, 5 decades in? Mm-hmm. What do we want to stand for as a family? And so,
well, and part of the missional part of our relationship was starting this podcast and saying, hey, a lot of people are asking us, how do you do this thing? How do you do the parenting, marriage, work-life balance, yada, yada. Even though we don't believe in balance, we believe in just rhythms, really good rhythms. But my point is this was a missional time to come together, and it's a for cause, it's a purpose project. So I think it is important that couples have a purpose project together, even if it's just, opening their home to teenagers on Wednesday nights or whatever. We just run, moms and dads and couples run at such a high pace that it is so, and sometimes we're going in different directions. It is so important that you have these things that bring you together, that you do together. So something we're about to do in 2 weeks is go serve as a family with Lighthouse Family Retreats, our favorite nonprofit coming alongside of families going through childhood cancer. And I always feel tired going into all those trips, right? Because it's like right off of a busy season. But I will say this is like, I commit to it so wholeheartedly because it's when we get to come together as a family and serve a common mission instead of running in our own lanes with different purposes. So, it's okay to have totally different jobs, different goals in life, even different interests. Like you love to hunt. I don't go hunting with you. I don't love it.
There's still time, Mindy.
I know. I'm like, but like so some people just fixate on having the same career goals or the same hobbies. And I'm like, no, you can really love someone and be attracted to them and have totally different hobbies, things that you don't like to do in your free time that are absolutely different from each other. But as long as you have a couple purposeful things, like we do that mission trip as a family, or this podcast as together as a purpose project in this season, but we've had other ones, where we led small groups or invested in people or came alongside and served in different ways. And so I'm like saying, you can totally have your own things and be different, but at least have some purposeful things that bring you back together.
Yeah. And if we look at a lot of the couples we know that are 50 plus years married, they were often working on something beyond themselves, serving others, doing something just beyond their company or their work or their career, right?
Correct.
And if you come back to serving, like one of our kids just told us, they're like, man, when we go to Lighthouse and we serve there, I just feel like so happy. And it was really cool to hear because it's like the spillover of something we've tried. And we've, 7 years in plus 8 years of serving as a family. And that organization blessed us so much from the people who took the time to serve. But it was really cool to hear our teenager basically say, like, I just feel, on top of the world when we get to be there. And that's what we want. Yeah. So, a couple of tips we're going to just recap real quick is 4 main principles that other couples who are married over 50 years have passed on to us is have friendship, number 1. Number 2, have that faith in God, or if maybe people haven't landed that yet, like we would encourage them to do so. It's helped us so much. Number 3, learning to communicate, including how to disagree respectfully, all the other elements there. And then 4, having a common mission in life. And so we just want to encourage you as you're watching or listening, like what's one practical thing you could do for your marriage? Life is busy, life is full, but if you want things to get better, we want to encourage you, like just pick one small thing that you could do to put some of these principles into your life for this month. And so pick schedule your breakfast dates even more intentionally. That could be figuring out how to have more meaningful conversation as a couple or praying together. Figure out ways to strengthen your connection amidst your busy schedule and all that's going on. So we want to challenge you with that. But thank you so much for watching, for joining us here at the Something New Show, where we talk about creating a life worth celebrating. Leave comments below on YouTube and other things. We'd love to hear from you. What stuck out to you? What's making a difference for you in your marriage and in your life? And thanks for passing this on and sharing with a friend who would find value in this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Cheers. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow The Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.